day, and welcome to this edition of Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to meet with people from the greater Plymouth community, and today I'm delighted we have two guests from the town of Plymouth. And joining us first, we have the Plymouth Town Manager, Derek Brindisi. Welcome, Derek. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having
Derek,
me.
for people that don't know you, give us a little bit of your background. How is it? What were you doing before you came to Plymouth?
Thank you for having me. So I started in municipal government back in 2000, working for the city of Worcester. I was born and raised in the city of Worcester. I was fortunate enough to get my first job out of college working for the city of Worcester. And I worked for the city up until 2015, when I left the city and came here in Plymouth to serve as the assistant town manager under former town manager Melissa Riggi. I had served for 2 years as the assistant town manager, and then I left the town of Plymouth to take a position as the town manager for the small town of Upton. And then luck would have it that I had the opportunity to come back to Plymouth in 2022 as the town manager, and been here ever since.
Good. And tell us a little bit, how would you describe the scope of your responsibilities as the town manager for Plymouth?
That's a complicated question, Steve. So, I think in summary, my job is to really manage the day-to-day operations of town government. So, as you know, it's very broad. The services we provide, everything from law enforcement to fire prevention, to public works, to working with our finance team around the annual budget of $325 million, and working with people like Commissioner Michelle Brady in the newly formed Health and Human Services Department, and the new department under leadership of David Gould of Department of Energy and Environment. So my job is to work with those department heads. They're all skilled professional administrators, and to really support them to be successful in the jobs that they do day in and day out to service our community.
Good. And you've made a number of changes since you've become town manager.
So I actually stopped using the word change, and what I like to use the word when I talk to staff is we're going to make improvements. Okay. So we always have the opportunity to make improvements. That's not saying that we're doing anything wrong, but we need to evolve. So government needs to evolve. Things have changed. Even early in my career, going back 24 years ago in the city of Worcester, technology has allowed us to do things that we haven't been able to do. So over the course of the last 3 years, working with the select board, who are my five bosses, a five-member select board, we've been able to advance a number of improvements here in the community. Like I mentioned, we've, for the first time ever, have a Health and Human Services Department. It's interesting when I talk about that department, because what I say to folks is, we have departments that focus on public safety. We have a department that focuses on infrastructure, say the DPW. But what we never had was a department that focused on people. Mm-hmm. And now we have a Department of Health and Human Services that focuses on people, working with our senior population, to our youth population, with rec, and everything in between, our veteran population. So I really appreciate that department. I think for one reason, I'm a little biased. I was formerly the Director of Public Health in the city of Worcester. So I come from that background, that experience of really understanding why we need to engage the community on a regular basis, understand their needs. And the other highlight, as I mentioned, under the leadership of David Gould, who's our Director of Department of Energy and Environment. Now you can remember, Steve, he was formerly the Director of Marine and Environmental Affairs. But again, the evolution. I
always have trouble at town meeting remembering as the names change. Yes. So I appreciate that.
Well, and again, that was the evolution of government. So there's been a big focus over the last 6 to 7 years on clean energy, green energy. There's a lot of focus on climate resiliency and sustainability planning. And we had a department that had the bones, so the Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs, they were doing a lot of work in the environment. So we were able to transfer the marine function, the harbor master, under the police department, under the police chief, Dana Flynn. But then that gave us the opportunity to create this Department of Energy and the Environment. And I have to say, if you haven't had the opportunity to view the work that they're doing, we have a downtown resiliency project that is currently being designed. We have a coastal resiliency project that is being designed right now in Town Wharf Way. So we have some really amazing projects that are coming up in the next couple of years. We just broke ground on the Jenny Pond dredging project, and that's phase one. And then we're going to move that project down to downtown Brook, into Brewster Gardens. So a lot of great work that's coming out of the department. Those are some of my, some of the things that I'm really excited to talk about and the work that we're doing here in town.
And today we have another guest, another one of your improvements. So as we lead into our second guest, how did that come about?
So communications was something that I recognized in the first couple of weeks when I returned here in 22, is that I often heard from town meeting members, folks in the community, that town hall isn't doing enough around engaging community, keeping the community informed. And so we recognize that, and we've made some small strides early on in my tenure. We created our own show, This Week in Plymouth. We did some social media work. We changed our whole website platform. But really, where the rubber hits the road is hiring somebody like Casey Kennedy, who's our first ever communications coordinator. The town has never had someone. The school has had someone focus on communications, but Casey's focus 60 hours a week is to think about ways that we can get the message out to the community on all the great things that are happening.
Casey Kennedy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we hear from Derek that you are communications coordinator. What does that mean to you? How would you describe your position?
So I see it as ever evolving. To encompass very quickly, obviously, my goal is to bridge the gap of communication from, the fourth floor, the town manager's office, town hall, to the community, the Plymouth community. There are so many amazing projects, as the town managers mentioned, that are occurring on a daily basis that sometimes take years to complete. So, residents might hear of it in the initial concept, but then it kind of goes silent because they don't see the day-to-day work day in and day out. My goal is to create means of getting that information out there in various ways, because you can't hit everyone in one channel. Not everyone is on social media. Not everyone wants to read a blog or something online. They want something in paper. Some people don't want to read at all. They want to listen. They want to watch. So we're trying to really gauge what the community is looking for and also kind of help bridge that gap. So we've created a few initiatives since I've started. Obviously, as the town manager said, the wonderful things that happened and occurred even before I came. There's a great new website. So I'm just here to kind of just push it forward.
So Casey, in my lane as moderator at town meeting, there often may be misinformation that is out there, social media, among town meeting members of the public. I'm fortunate in that because I'm the moderator, I'm an assistant moderator, we can pretty much manage the flow of accurate information from us.
Yeah.
But having said that, how do you on the town side the rest of the year deal with inaccurate misinformation that might be out there on social media or even in the press?
Yeah, so that one definitely gets tricky because kind of once misinformation is out there, especially 2024, almost 2025, with social media in particular, it's the game of telephone. Once something's out there, it just catches wildfire. So my goal is to have a lot of things come directly from town hall, from the town manager's office, in the form of press releases, if it's something that is official. Those press releases do go out to the local media, sometimes the statewide media, if need be. And it has our town seal on it. It is on our town website, coming from our social media platforms. So usually, it's more valid coming straight from us. If I do see something that is misinformation, I obviously do take it into consideration and will do my best to correct said information, whether it be a new social media post, if it's something quickly, again, a press release. But we also created a quarterly magazine that I have here.
Okay.
That I'm very excited to share with everybody. So this did come out already in October. The second issue will be coming out January 2nd. That's kind of our way of really getting any official info on projects, updates, boards and committees out there.
I gave you an article.
You did. Yeah. So that will be in there. So I'll be excited to feature you on this one. But yeah, it's my roles growing. On top of social media, I'll do events, media relations, so working with the press. So sometimes you can't catch everything that goes out in misinformation, especially with social media, but we do our best to kind of rein it in and get the correct info out there.
Derek, you know that earlier this year there was an email that came out, not from my email address, but from one that purported to be my email address. And because went out to 12 town meeting members, I contacted your staff, and fortunately your staff resolved it in terms of notifying town meeting members that it was not from me. But in that case, or in the case of maybe other town employees who might also be the victim, if you will, of someone impersonating them, what remedy does the town have?
Well, I'd start by saying that our IT department, under the leadership of Joe Young, is really the backbone of everything that we do, because all of our platforms that we work on, even in our police cruisers, are all wired to the network. And so we're spending considerable resources to protect our network and protect our finance against cyber attacks, malware, things of that nature. And we actually have training on a regular basis, working through state officials to train our town officials on what to look for in those types of events. In fact, our IT director will send out these spoof emails to folks and trying to see if they'll click on a link or if they'll click on a QR code sitting in the lunchroom. And so these are all techniques that we have been using to try to train our folks so that when they recognize those types of emails that you just mentioned, that they don't click on it, and then we don't have some type of ransomware attack, which you've seen in other communities. I think it was Lowell, I believe they had a ransomware attack and it cost them over $1 million in order to release their information back to the network. So we're trying to prevent that from happening. We believe that this is probably one of the number one threats against local government, these types of spyware attacks. In fact, at the last town meeting in April, the town meeting members, they approved a cybersecurity officer to work in the IT office. That's how serious we're taking those types of threats.
Casey, having served as an elected town official for over 35 years, I know the value of the press, and I appreciate the support of local cable TV, of the radio, of the newspaper. But unfortunately, there are times when the information that I want to deliver the community as a town moderator somehow gets changed, and I painstakingly take the time to try to explain what information we're trying to provide to the town of Plymouth. But when this wrong information is in the press, what can you do as the communications person for Plymouth do to try to correct the information?
Yeah, so specifically with the media, what I would do is I'm building relationships. That's how I look at it with media in particular, is I want them to know who I am, to come to me, to be able to get the information correctly from the initial source to start. I can direct them to, if they want to get in touch with town manager, but maybe I think there's someone else that would be better for them to talk to, I'll put them in touch. So that's been one goal, is making sure the information is coming from the accurate person from the get-go. In regard to maybe being information taken where it wasn't, you didn't mean it a particular way and it got written or said wrong, I want to have those relationships in place where I can pick up the phone, shoot an email and say, hey, so-and-so, this is unfortunate, was written wrong. Is there any way we can make an edit, a redaction? That is going to be huge moving forward, because you can't just do that with no relationship built. So I've been here about 4 months?
August.
Since August. So I've started to build those relationships with the local media. Obviously, I want to continue to do so because, like you said, it's very easy, especially when you're hearing from multiple sources at once. So really, I want to be the person that streamlines who the best person to get in touch with will be to even prevent that from happening.
And that's been a challenge. So we've been, especially with the local media, we've been trying to work with them, as Casey pointed out, to build those relationships. And sometimes the reports aren't as accurate as we would like them to read. And, having those conversations in local media, sometimes they'll just say to us, hey, listen, that's what we reported, that's how it's going to stand. So I'm going to half jokingly say this, but half serious say, so we've also toyed the idea of coming up with our own podcast called Counterpoint. So if something is misrepresented in local media, maybe we'll have a 5-minute conversation on a podcast to provide the true and most accurate information in those stories.
So Derek, you may recall during the pandemic, when the shutdown was about ready to occur, I met with our state rep and local media, town manager, to determine how we're going to deliver up-to-the-minute information to the community. And what we ended up doing was the state representative and I co-hosted a daily show here at the studio at noon for 1 hour so that we would have official presentations and not rumor, whether it's the town manager, the superintendent. And we did 100 shows, and that was very successful in terms of delivering information. But going forward, and I can imagine that this protocol, if they were a murder or an escaped convict, I mean, the police are going to be out there speaking to the community. And years ago when I was a kid, we had a big fire in South Plymouth, and I'm sure the fire officials were before the cameras. But what is in place, to the extent you can divulge it, for the town of Plymouth to be out there in an emergency delivering, up-to-the-minute information that is official information?
So I would say that in the past, before Casey's arrival, we had contracts with professional media firms. And, in the case of, say, the fire department, Chief Foley, if he was dealing with a 4-alarm fire, he would be working directly with that media firm to release information as quickly as possible in order to, calm any fears that may be out there and provide that accurate information. But now that, Casey's here, she has built a really strong relationship with both chiefs. And I think in Casey's first 4 weeks, you have dealt with a number of emergencies. The West Nile virus, although it was a little bit more slow moving, it was an emergency. We had to make quick decisions. We had to get that information out quickly, working with Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Michelle Brady. So having Casey there to work there, and she knows that she has a 24/7 job. She could be driving to Rhode Island on a Friday night and may get a phone call that something has happened.
That's a real scenario.
That's it, right. And so we both know that we pull over, we handle the situation, and so having Casey on board has helped strengthen that information message moving forward. And it's only going to get better because, again, she's our first communications coordinator. So we're still trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how we can smooth this out.
And if I want to chime in too, we have an option on the website to sign up for alerts. So it's under news and updates. So anything that gets put on the main webpage under that section, you'll get an alert. So that's where on top of social media, a lot of the press releases get pushed to that. So you'll immediately get a text or an email saying new news update. Sometimes it's not always a crisis. It could be something as simple as, the Massachusetts civil exam to become a police officer. We push that out on news and updates. But sometimes it is more urgent. And we can also do, I believe it's Code Red that the fire department and police department have. And that also pushes notifications out in case of an emergency.
It's so important because I was out of town at the time when the Middle Street parking lot road rage incident occurred. And my phone was blowing up with family members texting about, did you hear? Is everything okay? I got to, maybe I can't go to the parade because it's unsafe. So it seems to me the sooner you get official information out, letting people know it's contained, it's safe.
It's an isolated incident.
Right. The better it's going to be for the community.
Yeah, and that's a really good example, Steve. I believe that incident took place around 5:30 p.m. thereabouts that Friday evening. And I think the first official statement that evening from the police chief was released around 8 p.m. And then I know Casey had followed up with more information thereafter. And, I would say a 2-hour turnaround. It was a difficult situation. We know that there was a number of people that wanted more information. I was following it on social media myself, but in some situations, slow is sometimes better. We have to make sure that we gather in the facts, that we are releasing the correct information, not only in a timely manner, but that it's information that is accurate, right? And we do think the local media can play a role in that. And what we're trying to encourage them is that, there's in any one of these situations that there's just not, this difficult side of the story, because there's also, the accomplishments that take place in any one of these situations. You think about the individual this past summer who walked away from the home and they found days later.
Right.
The story that wasn't told was the number of man hours and volunteers that helped the police department and the DA's office try to find this individual. The local media was so focused on, how could he be released from the hospital? Who wasn't watching him? And although that was part of the story, there was another side of the story that the community really came together. And one thing I've learned about Plymouth in the last 3 years is that this community really comes together. Like, some of the people in this community have the biggest hearts. Dickie Quinto, the chairman of select board, probably has the biggest heart in this community. And we want to tell that side of the story as much as, the difficult theme.
Also, using some of these examples that occur, sometimes as a result of these incidents, the rules of engagement change. So we need to get that out. I know following that road rage event, I very soon after had a client who was involved in a road rage incident. And although she didn't have a motor vehicle violation, her license and license of the vehicle was suspended as an immediate threat, just because the state police now and the registry of motor vehicles are on a heightened awareness about an increase in road rage. So this past weekend, we had a local real estate office in the South Shore shut down unexpectedly. And there's a concern about funds that were being held by that real estate office as deposit for buyers in the South Shore. So right away, the local bar, lawyers, and realtors have to quickly adjust to maybe changing the way in which we do business so as to protect buyers in our community in Plymouth from not having a situation where their funds are at risk. So the way in which we as a community respond to these events is very important in order to protect the citizens of the community. But Casey, I want to ask you, what's your background coming to this position?
My background's in communications.
Oh, good.
So I've done a lot of marketing, internal communications, external working with the media before. This is my first municipality role, but I was ready for the challenge. I definitely hit the ground running. Like the town manager said, I think I was working with some statewide and national media with Commissioner Brady just in the first 4 weeks with the West Nile Triffletti virus. So that kind of trial by fire and hasn't slowed down. I don't expect it to, so I'm ready for the challenge. And then one of the points I just want to loop back what the town manager said on situations, especially when it comes to crisis communication, is we do understand we want to get that info out to the public as soon as possible. The one thing I never want to be a part of is misinformation. And sometimes that is why it takes a little bit more time than especially again with social media. Everything is instant gratification. Why can't they tell us? Especially when it's an ongoing case. we can't get the information necessarily out to the public because it could affect the case itself. With it being something as the Middle Street incident, highlighting that it was isolated was very crucial, very important to showcase to the community there is no further risk. But getting more info such as personal names out there, that's not the main priority in the first 6 to 24 hours until we can gather what happened. Because there will be a lot of hearsay, especially when there's eyewitnesses, different angles of viewpoints. And one of the things that we should be very proud of is the businesses have came together and provided a lot of footage that ended up helping us narrow down exactly what happened. So I think...
Well, I was going to say, you should probably mention the security project.
So we actually have a downtown camera project called Plymouth Protected Places for the downtown businesses. It is free. Anyone with Wi-Fi access can join. They just have to reach out to our IT department. It protects the business. There's no cost. There's no extra liability for the business, but it just keeps the community even safer than we're already trying to keep it.
Yeah, and it creates a network of surveillance cameras downtown. So we have some surveillance cameras, but we want more. And this is something that came up with the Downtown Business Group a couple of years ago about their employees feeling safe or unsafe. And we said, okay, what can we do? So we started Plymouth Protected Places prior to the Middle Street event, but a lot of folks said, oh, if we only had cameras. Well, the cameras would not have prevented what had happened that day. However, cameras could have provided the evidence that the law enforcement needed to solve that mystery. But more importantly, I think over time, it's like going to London. London is the most surveilled city in the world. And, I envision that Plymouth could be like that as well. Because people feel safe when they go to London because they know that they're being watched. They know that law enforcement is watching every movement. So the more we do that, the more people will feel safe. And I do believe that it'll mitigate those types of events in the future.
Yes, I think it could be a disincentive for the perpetrator taking that event. If it were well known that was camera ready in that parking lot, maybe the participants wouldn't have done what they did.
That's right.
Derek, one of the things that we learned during the COVID shutdown was that we really needed to have very good communication among state, local, federal authorities. And one of the things we did was we partnered with our legislators, and they brought in a daily update from the governor. We brought in our local congressmen, and their office would give us updates. Certainly the schools helping on complement the town side of government. What is being done now that we have, for the first time, a new state rep and a new state legislator coming on at the same time, and we know we need to have good communication flowing back and forth?
So I'll start by saying that my 3 years working with the sitting state delegation were phenomenal. Again, I had worked with City Worcester, I worked in Central Mass, town of Upton, and this state delegation, they really work hard each and every day.
And they're bipartisan.
And they are, right. So we had a Republican, we had a couple of Democrats. And so it was a really good mix, really good team, and you could see it when we would have ribbon cutting events or, they'd get together that they really worked hand in hand. So I'm going to miss working with Rep. Muratori in the future. However, we just met with the Senator-elect Dylan Fernandez this morning, just in passing, and we are planning to have a legislative agenda for early January to meet with the new state delegation. We're looking forward to them. We think that given that their governor is has the same political background as they are, that we think that we'll be able to get some additional resources here than we've seen in the past. So we'll continue to foster those relationships. Again, we have a new state rep in Michelle Badger, a new state senator in Dylan Fernandez, and Kathleen Archer. She'll be the veteran, showing these two the way. So and she's been great, and so her and I have already had conversations. So we're excited to work with the new delegation and see what resources they can bring to bear so that we can make improvements here in this community.
Casey, I always ask my guests, when you're not serving as the communications person at the town of Plymouth, what do you like to do in your free time?
I would say hiking with my dog. I love her. She's my fur baby. He laughs at that. And just spend time with family and friends. Decompress a little bit.
Derek, what do you do in your free time?
Well, I don't have a lot of free time, but what I do when I'm not here, I think that's probably the easier question to answer. When I'm not working for the town, I'm either at the Air National Guard base, so I'm a lieutenant colonel up at the Air National Guard base right outside of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, at Pease Air National Guard base. So
Pease?
Right at Pease, yep.
I know it well.
So that's where I spend my weekends sometimes. And then when I'm not there, I have a 5 and a 3-year-old, 2 grandsons, and I spend a lot of time with them. In fact, I have a plan. Living here in downtown Plymouth, and my 2 grandsons, living in Central Mass, and quite frankly, they're the only reason why I go back to Central Mass is to visit them, and I have to watch them tomorrow, Friday night, all by myself. But I'm looking forward to it because they're fun, and they kind of rejuvenate me a little bit, and we get to play and stuff. So that's typically what I do. I don't really have any, much more fun than that.
Great. And Derek, if people just joined us halfway through and didn't see the whole presentation, if there's one thing you want to leave in their mind about this production today, what would it be?
Well, I want folks to know that, we have about 500 employees on the town side. And, from front-facing service staff members to our administrators, they wake up every day and they want to do right by the residents and taxpayers. And they work really hard. And I've said it in the past, and some people, they'll debate it with me, but, I believe that we're understaffed for the size community we are. We're the largest town in Massachusetts geographically and by form of government, and it's a lot of work to deliver core municipal services in this community, given the staffing level. But I can tell you that not a dollar goes wasted in this community, and I believe that we are doing some amazing things, some things that we have never thought of in years past. So I'm excited to work with the team of 500 town officials. Looking forward to working with them in the future.
Good. And same question to you, Casey. What would you want people to remember from this?
I would say I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to help bridge that communication gap, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. We're going to keep moving forward with new initiatives, new channels to get the information out there, to hit the community from all different angles. And it's going to evolve. I'm here to hear what the community wants, to see what they want to hear more about, but we're going to try our best to get as much info out there as we can.
Casey Kennedy, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much.
Again, your title?
I'm a communications coordinator for the town of Plymouth.
Communications coordinator. Derek, town manager, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
That completes this presentation of Plymouth Profiles. Please join us again in the future when we once again meet with people from the greater Plymouth community who are making a difference in our lives. I'm Steve Triffletti. Good day.